Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Say it after me. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May my homage be to my most venerable teacher, who taught me this Dhamma in the most simplest and basic manner. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya. Meritorious devotees, you're all here because you all have something common. What is that? Now, if you take this whole country, most people during a weekend like this are busy with doing various things. But you decided to come to this temple because you wanted to listen to the Dhamma. Am I right? Why? Why do you want to listen to the Dhamma? You want to listen to the Dhamma because you want something more than this ordinary life can give you. Am I right? A long time ago, when our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, was alive, there was a young man. Now, this young man was was someone who belonged to a very rich family. In fact, he was a nobleman. He lived in India. He had everything he'd ever want. So he had a good palace to live in. He had the most delicious food to eat. Whatever clothes he wanted, he got. Whatever vehicle he wanted, he got. In terms of material things, there was nothing that he was missing. Every night, there were dancers to entertain him. So he wasn't missing anything. However, one night, when he was listening to songs and watching the dancers dance, he wondered to himself, what's really the meaning of this life? Is it this eating, drinking, dancing, and singing? Is this really the purpose in life? He started to wonder. He started to feel an emptiness within him. And so what he did was, he took out his golden slippers and he set off from home. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know what he was looking for, but he knew he didn't have the happiness that he wanted. He started to walk and walk and walk. And because of his past merit, he somehow went towards where our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, was. And when he got, of course, he didn't know who the Supreme Buddha was. He didn't know where he was. Because of his fortune, he somehow went there. Now, when he was closer to the Supreme Buddha, because of that emptiness within him, because of that dissatisfaction in life, he said, "Oh, this life is a nuisance." Now, when our great teacher heard this, the Supreme Buddha replied, "Oh yes, sir," which was his name. "Oh yes, sir. This life is not a nuisance. The life that I lead is not a nuisance." So this young man turned around to see where this voice was coming from, and he saw a great teacher, the Supreme Buddha. And he was blessed to hear the Supreme Buddha's teaching, the Dhamma. When he listened to the Dhamma, he realized, this is what I'm looking for. This would fill that empty spot in my heart. When he heard the Dhamma, he understood the Dhamma. He decided to become ordained, and at the end, he ended up becoming an Arhat who attained a pure mind. So he found the happiness that he was looking for. Now, although this situation occurred over 2,600 years ago, I think a lot of us here today has the same feeling. Is that right? A lot of us have some emptiness within us, and we're all looking for that happiness in life. Am I right? We're looking for happiness, yet we're not getting it. And of course, for Yasser, that nobleman, that young man, he found the person who could give him that happiness, which was the Supreme Buddha. But today, our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, is not with us. The Blessed One has passed away. The person who can give us that happiness is not with us. When our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, passed away, the Supreme Buddha addressed his chief attendant, Venerable Ananda, and said, "Ananda, when I pass away, you may feel that you're without a teacher. Don't think so. Don't think in that way. Make this teaching that I have taught you, this Dhamma that I have taught you, make that your teacher." So then, if you want to know who the Supreme Buddha is, we have to learn the Dhamma. If you don't know what the Dhamma is, there is absolutely no way that we can understand who the Supreme Buddha is. During the Supreme Buddha's time, there was a venerable Bhante named Vakkali. Have you heard of him? No one has heard of him? Okay. Venerable Vakkali, when he was living in his household life, he was so amazed at the Supreme Buddha's beauty. As you know, the Supreme Buddha had 32 signs of a great being. He had golden skin, beautiful blue eyes. He was the most beautiful person in the world. So this Venerable Vakkali, as a young man, was so fond of looking at the Supreme Buddha. So he didn't form a pleasant mind about the Dhamma, but rather, because he wanted to see the Supreme Buddha every single day, he decided to become ordained. So he became ordained, and little by little, he got sick. And when he got sick, the Supreme Buddha came to him and asked, Vakkali, do you have any regrets in life? Venerable Vakkali replied, Venerable Sir, I do have regret. That is, before I got sick, I used to come to you every day and see you. But now I can't see you because I'm sick. When Venerable Vakkali said this, our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, the great sage, replied to Venerable Vakkali saying, Vakkali, what's the point of looking at this foul body? Vakkali, yo dhammam passati, so mam passati. That's a Pali phrase. The meaning is, O Vakkali, if you want to see me, see the Dhamma. If you see the Dhamma, you will see me. So today, if we want to get closer to the Supreme Buddha, if we want to know who the Blessed One is, the only way to become closer to the Buddha is not looking at a statue. Looking at a statue is not going to teach us, tell us what an amazing person the Supreme Buddha is. Only through learning the Dhamma can you realize who the Supreme Buddha is. So in order for us to know who the Buddha is, we must learn the Dhamma. The Supreme Buddha explains, the Supreme Buddha advises, O bhikkhus, make yourself your own refuge. Make the Dhamma your own refuge. For there is nothing else, for there is no one else who can be your refuge. So if you want a security in life, if you want a refuge in life, then what should we do? What should we do? The Blessed One said, make yourself your refuge, make the Dhamma your refuge. So how can we make the Dhamma our refuge if we don't know what the Dhamma is? That's why it's important that we learn the Dhamma. When we learn the Dhamma, little by little, we understand what life really is. Our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha explains, we're traveling in a long journey of samsara. Samsara means a journey of birth and death. The Supreme Buddha explains, O bhikkhus, this samsara is without a discoverable beginning. A first point is not discerned of beings roaming, wandering in this samsara. Now, is this something that we knew before? Did we know that we are traveling in something called the samsara? Most of us thought that this is our first life. This is the first time that I have been born. Am I right? If a great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, doesn't teach us about this cycle of birth and death, we would never know that we have been traveling such a long journey. The Supreme Buddha explains, O bhikkhus, this is how long of a journey we have been traveling. Suppose you cut out all the grass and sticks and branches there is in this Jambudipa. Jambudipa means the Indian continent. So the Blessed One is saying, suppose you cut off every single branch, every single stick there is, all the grasses, into small pieces. The Supreme Buddha is saying, after you pile them up, you take each stick and you say, this is my mother. This is my mother's mother. This is my mother's mother's mother. The Supreme Buddha says, that pile of sticks would end. However, the amount of mothers we have had in this samsara would not. Do you understand? That shows us how long of a journey we have been traveling. And in another instance, the Supreme Buddha said, O bhikkhus, suppose you take this great earth, this entire earth, you take the soil and you make little balls of clay. So imagine how many balls of clay you can make if you take this entire amount of earth. And then you take each ball of clay and you say, this is my father. This is my father's father. This is my father's father's father. The Supreme Buddha explains, the amount of clay balls that pile would end. However, the amount of fathers would not end. So that's how long we have traveled. That's why the Supreme Buddha explains the beginning of this samsara, it cannot be discerned, it cannot be seen, even to the Supreme Buddha. That's how long. Now you may think in this long journey of samsara, we came smiling, being happy. But that's not the truth. The Supreme Buddha explains, O bhikkhus, when you traveled in this samsara, the amount of tears that you shed when your loving mother passed away, when your loving father passed away, when your sister, when your brother was separated from you, when your husband, your wife was separated from you, the amount of tears that you shed is greater than the water in the 4 great oceans. Now imagine if we take this life, imagine the amount of tears we must have shed in this life. It's very little, right? The Supreme Buddha explains, in this samsara, the amount of tears that we have shed is greater than the water in the 4 great oceans. So imagine how much we must have cried. That just shows how long we have been traveling like this, being born over and over again. And as I mentioned before, this journey of samsara is not a pleasant one. The Supreme Buddha explains, although we are born as human beings in this very life, most of the time, this is not where we were born. We were born in the 4-fold hell. That is, we have been born either in the animal world, so as an animal, or in the ghost world, as ghosts, or in the hell world, as beings in hell. Although we feel that this is the first time we have been born, this is my first husband, this is my first wife, that's not the truth. We have been traveling in this samsara for such a long time. The Supreme Buddha explains, the 4-fold hell is like our home. What's the meaning of that? When you leave home, either to go to the office, or to go to school, or to go to work, or to go to the shopping mall, you always return back home. Right? No matter where you go, no matter how long of a stay you take away from home, you always return back to home. Just like that, the Supreme Buddha explains, this human life that we have is just a short stay. Most of the time, when we pass away from this human life, we fall back onto the fourfold hell. Either we are born as an animal, or in the hell world, or in the ghost world. For you to understand this point, I'll give you an example. One day, a group of 30 monks came to meet the Supreme Buddha. When these 30 monks came to the Supreme Buddha thought, let me teach the Dhamma in such a way that while they're still sitting in these very seats, their minds will be liberated. So the Supreme Buddha wanted to help these monks to get their minds liberated, sitting in those very seats. So the Supreme Buddha asked these monks, "O monks, which is more, the stream of blood that you have shed when you were beheaded as you roamed and wandered through this long journey of samsara, or the water in the 4 great oceans?" Did you understand? What the Supreme Buddha asked was, these monks were able to see their past lives. So although we can't see our past lives because of meditation, these bhikkhus, these monks were able to see their past lives. So what the Supreme Buddha asked them to do is to refer back to their past lives and to see in this long journey how many times they were born as animals. So the Supreme Buddha asked, "O bhikkhus, what's more? The amount of blood that was shed when you were beheaded, when you were born as pigs and hens, and when you were caught as burglars, or the amount of water in the 4 great oceans?" The bhikkhus replied, "Venerable Sir, the amount of blood shed when we were beheaded as pigs and goats and cows and as burglars is way more than the amount of water in the 4 great oceans." So imagine how many times we have been born in the animal world. How many times we have become burglars. Now sitting here you may think, "Oh no, I would never steal, I would never become a burglar." But is that the truth? No. We have become pigs, cows, burglars, murderers. That's how dangerous this samsara is. And so we're very fortunate. In this very moment, we were not born as an animal. We're not in hell. We're not a ghost. But rather, in this very moment, we have been blessed to be born as a human being. The Supreme Buddha explains, getting a human life, being a human being, is very rare. Now, to this ordinary mind that we have, we think being born as a human being is a normal thing. Right? If you die, then highly likely we think even in the next life we'll be born as a human being. But that's far from the truth. To explain this, one day the Supreme Buddha taught the monks a simile. The Supreme Buddha said, "O bhikkhus, suppose you throw a yoke into the sea." Do you know what a yoke is? It's an instrument used in agriculture. So it's like a piece of wood with a hole in it. So suppose a person throws a yoke into the sea. Now when the wind is blowing from the east, this yoke would float towards the west. When the wind is blowing from the west, it would go towards the eastern side. When the wind is blowing from the south, it would move towards the northern side. And in this way, it will be turning, it will be floating in various directions, right? The Supreme Buddha explains, "Oh bhikkhus, suppose there's a turtle underneath the sea, and this turtle has one blind eye, so he can only see from one eye. And this turtle is not someone who always comes to the surface. It only comes to the surface once every 100 years. The Supreme Buddha asks, "O bhikkhus, what do you think? What's the chance that this one-eye blind turtle would rise up and see the sky through that small hole of that yoke that that man threw into the sea? What's the chance?" If you understood the simile correctly, your answer should be, it would happen very rarely. Highly unlikely. Just like that, the bhikkhu said, "Oh, Venerable Sir, it's highly unlikely that that would happen." The Supreme Buddha explains, "Oh, bhikkhus, no, that can actually happen. That can actually happen. But if someone falls back into the bad worlds from this human life, the chances of that person coming back to the human world is even rarer than that." So you can understand how rare this opportunity that we have gotten is. The Supreme Buddha explains, getting to listen to the Dhamma is also rare. Do you agree with that? If we take this world as a whole, how many people actually gets to hear the Dhamma? The Supreme Buddha explains, being born as a human being is rare, listening to the Dhamma is rare, and having the wisdom to understand the Dhamma is also rare. Right? So a lot of people listen to the Dhamma, but they don't understand it. The reason being, they don't have the wisdom they need to understand it. The Supreme Buddha explains, when these three things gets together, when you get a human life, and when you're born at a time where the Blessed One's teaching is still alive, and you have the wisdom to understand it, that's known as the rare opportunity. What is it known as? Rare opportunity. In Pali, it's known as Kana Sampatti. So do you think that we have gotten this opportunity a lot in this samsara or rarely in this samsara? The Supreme Buddha explains, in this long journey of samsara, it's very rarely that these three things comes together. Do you understand? The Supreme Buddha explains, sometimes when the Dhamma is being taught in this world, you're born as an animal. Can you understand the Dhamma? You can't. Or when a Buddha has appeared and the Dhamma is being taught, you're born in hell. Can you hear the Dhamma? You can't. Or you're born in the ghost world. Can you understand the Dhamma? You can't. Or you don't have the wisdom to understand the Dhamma. Or the Supreme Buddha explains, sometimes when the Dhamma is being taught, you live in a faraway place where no one comes there to teach the Dhamma. If you take the world as a whole, many areas don't get to listen to the Dhamma. So if you live in such an area, you don't get the opportunity. Or the Supreme Buddha explains, sometimes what happens is, you're born as a human being and you have the wisdom. So you're living in this human life, you have the wisdom to understand the right from wrong, but you don't get to hear the Dhamma. A Buddha has not appeared in the world. So in this way, this chance that we have gotten, this opportunity that we have gotten, is a very rare one. To illustrate this point, I'll give you a small example. One day, a great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, was going on tour with Venerable Ananda. When the Supreme Buddha was walking, the Blessed One saw a piglet in mud. And the Blessed One smiled. Now, Supreme Buddhas don't smile for any reason, like we do. We laugh for anything. We smile for anything, right? The Supreme Buddhas don't do like that. When the Supreme Buddha smiled, Venerable Ananda saw this and asked, Bhante, Venerable Sir, why did you smile? And so a great teacher asked Venerable Ananda, Ananda, did you see that piglet? That's in the mud. That's eating mud. Venerable Ananda said, yes, I saw it. And so the Supreme Buddha explained, oh, Ananda, this piglet, during the time of the Sikhi Supreme Buddha, which is a long, long time ago, before the Gautama Supreme Buddha, there was a Buddha in the name of Sikhi. During the Supreme Buddha's time, this piglet that's in this mud was born as a hen, and it was living near a monastery where monks resided. And when the monks were chanting suttas, this hen heard it. Now, being in the animal realm, the hen doesn't have the ability to understand the meaning of the Dhamma. However, it got a pleasant mind about the rhyme, of the rhythm, the chanting. Because of that pleasant mind, that hen collected merit. That merit allowed her to be born in the human world in the next life. Now, these are things that happens very rarely. Okay? So in the next life, this hen was born as a human being. Was born in a royal family, so was a princess. So one day, when this princess is walking by, she saw a sewer pit infested with worms. And so when she saw those worms, she understood the foulness in life. Meaning, if you take this body for example, although we find this body to be attractive, if we take the skin off, imagine we take the skin off. All that beauty, all that attraction disappears, right? Just like that, when this princess saw that sewer pit, she understood the foulness in life, and she developed the foulness meditation so high that she attained jhanas. Jhanas means very developed levels of meditation. Now, is she doing this by listening to the Supreme Buddha's Dhamma? No. When she was born as a human being, she didn't get to hear the Dhamma. There was no Buddha at the time. She's doing this through her own wisdom. Now, this is what I said. Sometimes we are born in the human world and we have the wisdom, but there's no Dhamma that we can hear. So after she developed the meditation, because she developed her mind, in the next life she was born in the Brahma realm. Now, as you know, Brahma realm is a very high level. Is considered to be a good world. So because of her meditation, she was born in the Brahma world. And she spent the entire lifespan in the Brahma world. And when the Gautama Supreme Buddha appeared in the world again, she fell back into lower worlds and she was born as a pig. Now this was the pig that the Blessed One saw. So that was the past lives of this pig. Now you can see how she missed the opportunity to listen to the Dhamma. When the Dhamma was being taught, she was a hen. She couldn't hear. She couldn't understand. And then in the next life, she was a human being, but there was no Dhamma for her to hear. And she went to the Brahma world, but even through the Brahma world, she was not secure. That's why she fell back into the lower world. She was born during the Gautama Supreme Buddha's time, but she was a piglet. Again an animal, can't understand the Dhamma. This is the type of journey that we all have been traveling. So we must realize then, this human life that we have gotten is a very rare one. So then we must realize, if this opportunity is very rare, what should we do? We must make the most of it, right? We must make the most of it, because if we lose this opportunity, there is no guarantee that we'll get this again. If we fall back into this long journey of samsara, it's highly unlikely that we can get out of it. The Supreme Buddha explains, falling into the bad worlds is like falling into a pit that's higher than you, which means a deep hole. Now, if you fall into a hole that's higher than you, can you get out easily? You can't, right? It's very difficult. The Supreme Buddha explains, if you fall back into those lower worlds, getting out is not easy. The reason being, if you're an animal, you can't collect merit. You can't understand right from wrong. In the ghost world, in the hell world, you don't know the right from wrong. No one's there to teach you. You don't have the wisdom to understand the difference. However, in this very moment, we have gotten a human life and the wisdom we need to understand. So we must use that wisdom to understand the truth about life. The Supreme Buddha explains the truth in life is that we are all aging. We're all, little by little, falling sick. And every step we take, we are getting closer and closer to death. That's the reality. And no matter how rich you are, or no matter how educated you are, no matter how beautiful you are, we all, as human beings, have to face this reality. Right? No matter what country you live in, what religion you follow, we all have to face this truth. Can we run away from it? Although we want to, we can't. We like to run away from falling ill. That's why when we get a small symptom, we run to the doctor. Because we don't want it to get more serious. We don't like to get sick. We don't like to age. When the beautiful hair that we have is falling off, becoming gray, is it a pleasant feeling or an unpleasant feeling? It's an unpleasant feeling, isn't it? When our eyes become weak, when our skin becomes frail and wrinkled, is it a pleasant feeling or an unpleasant feeling? It's an unpleasant feeling. That's why we do all these things we use all these anti-aging products and we do all these things to run away from aging. We want to stop it. But no matter how much we want to stop it, we can't. We all have to face aging. And one day, we'll have to die. One day, although we live together with our mothers and fathers, our husbands and wives and children, there'll come a point in life where we have to leave them. Now imagine you die this very moment. Are you ready? Are you ready to let go? It's difficult, isn't it? It's a difficult situation to face. It causes us so much fear. It causes us so much suffering. This is why the Supreme Buddha explained, if we understand this reality, if we understand that little by little we're aging, little by little we're falling sick and becoming closer to death, the Supreme Buddha explains, if we understand this truth, then that person looks for a way to get out of it. He looks for a way to get rid of this suffering. He looks for a way to find real happiness. Most people in this world don't understand this truth. They don't realize that we are suffering because of aging, illness and death. They don't realize that there's a way to get out of it. They don't realize the attachments that we have, the craving that we have within is what causes suffering. They don't realize there is something called Nibbana, where you can actually find real happiness. And they don't understand the path that leads to it. The Supreme Buddha explains, one day a group of bhikkhus and the Supreme Buddha went, and the bhikkhus asked, Venerable Sir, is there a more deeper and darker place than this precipice here? And the Supreme Buddha explains, yes, there is. The person who don't understand the truth about life, the person who don't understand the Four Noble Truth, that person's mind is so dark and steep, is even more scarier. The reason being, that person does not know the reality of life. However, if a person realizes this truth in life, he becomes a person who wants to be free from that suffering. He searches for happiness, real happiness. So he tries to find the path that leads to real happiness. When he searches, he can find, he will realize that the only way to find real happiness in life is to attain a pure mind. Do you understand? The way to find real happiness is to attain a pure mind. So then if you're unhappy at the moment, what does that mean? If you're not happy at the moment, what does that mean? Is our mind pure or impure? Yes. Our mind is impure. It's filled with so many unwholesome things. The Supreme Buddha explained to us what those unwholesome things are. The Supreme Buddha teaches anger is unwholesome. Unwholesome means bad, not good. Desire, lust is unwholesome. Jealousy is unwholesome. Being egoistic, being prideful is unwholesome. The Supreme Buddha explains, when our mind is unwholesome, the consequence is our actions also become unwholesome. So when our mind is unwholesome, when our mind is impure, the things we do, the things we say is also unwholesome. Is that right? Now, I want you to think of a time where you got angry. Now, I'm sure we all have gotten angry at one point or another, right? So when we get angry, do we speak to the person who we got angry with kindly and lovingly? Or do we yell at that person, call him names and blame him? Right? So when we get angry, our speech becomes impure. And then when we get angry, we do things to take revenge, right? Sometimes we kill when we get angry with someone. Now that's why we see so much corruption in society, so much violence in society. Why? Because people's minds are impure. So when our mind becomes impure, we kill. We hurt other people's feelings. We hurt living beings. We end up lying to other people. We end up cheating other people. We end up engaging in sexual misconduct. We end up stealing other people's things, right? And when our mind is impure, we turn to drinks and drugs. So the Supreme Buddha explains, when our mind becomes impure, our actions become impure. When our actions become impure, the consequence is we have to one day face the results of those actions, which is known as karma. I'm sure you're all familiar with the word karma. Karma means the results of our actions. So it could be good or bad. When the mind is pure, our actions are pure and the consequences are wholesome, positive. When our mind is impure, when we're angry, when we're jealous, when we have envy within us, when we have lust and desire within us, we end up doing things that's wrong through body and speech. And so we have to face the consequences. When we do bad things, the problem is we fall back onto bad worlds, such as the animal world, the hell world, and the ghost world. During the Supreme Buddha's time, there was a farmer. Now, this farmer had a cow which is very lazy. So this cow doesn't work the way this farmer wants. So now, because of this, this farmer gets angry all the time because it's not working as he wants. So one day what he did, now he got really angry. He went to this cow, he took some hay, and he put the hay on the cow and lit it on fire. Set it on fire. Now what happened was, the cow burnt and passed away. This farmer thought his problem was over. Because we always think short term, right? We want short term results. We don't think ahead. So he thought, my problem now is over. I don't have to deal with this lazy cow anymore. But did it end? No. His problem started right there. As a result of him killing that cow by burning him, he was born in the hell world in the next life. Because what he did is he killed. So as a result of killing, he was born in the hell world in the next life. And he suffered in hell for so many eons, so much. And for one of his past merit, he was actually able to be born in the human world. Although he was in the human world, he was a crow. He was born as a crow. So before he had a human life, he lost it. He was born in the hell world. And then after suffering in the hell world for such a long time, he came to the human world. He was living among humans, but as a crow. Now one day what happened was, a group of monks were coming towards seeing the Supreme Buddha, and they had to stay in a place. And the people in that village offered to give the monks alms. So they were cooking. Now while they were cooking, what happened is they were frying something, and there was a stack of hay there next to the cooking place, and one of the straws of hay was lit on fire, and when the wind was blowing, it went all the way up. And a crow came towards this piece of the stalk of hay that was burning. The crow was set on fire. Now this is not something that happens normally, right? The monks were watching this and wondered, wow, do animals die like this? They were amazed at the situation. So they went to the Supreme Buddha and told the Supreme Buddha, Venerable Sir, when we were on our way to see you, we saw this happening. A crow was set on fire, which was not ordinary. So the Supreme Buddha explained, oh bhikkhus, this crow, many lives before, was born as a farmer. This farmer set a cow on fire by using a stack of hay, by setting that on fire. As a result of that, after suffering in the hell world for so many eons, he comes back to either the human world or the animal world, but each time he dies by being set on fire. So you can see how the consequences of our actions come after us. Although we do something expecting a short-term satisfaction, it doesn't end there. Karma, results of actions, come after us. And until we face the consequences, it comes after us. So you can see that farmer had to not only go to the hell world, but each time it's born, it's set on fire and it dies. Right? So that's how dangerous this samsara is. So in order for us to purify our mind, the Supreme Buddha explains, in order for us to purify our mind, we must first do one thing. That is, we must first recognize that we all have impurities in our mind. Do you all agree? We all have impurities in our mind. After we recognize this, then we must try to fight against them. That is, we must try to purify our mind. The Supreme Buddha explains, when you get angry, you must spread loving kindness. When you feel jealous, you must rejoice in seeing others successful. Now this meditation is known as mudita meditation. When you feel lustful and desirous, you must practice the foulness meditation. The Supreme Buddha explains, when you become very egoistic, you must realize the impermanence in life and understand that all these things, they change and become impermanent. There's nothing to hold on to. So in this way, the Supreme Buddha explains, you must be mindful and try to little by little purify your mind. The purer your mind becomes, a better person you become. When you purify your mind, you become a good person with human qualities. That is, your mind expands, not narrow. When your mind becomes narrow, you allow your impurities to control you. Do you understand? What that means is when you get angry, you yell and you scream and you do wrong things. When you become jealous, you take revenge. That's a narrow mind. However, the Supreme Buddha's disciples don't have narrow minds. They have broad minds. What that means is they are compassionate. They have compassionate hearts. They practice patience. Do you understand? And instead of becoming egoistic and prideful, the Blessed One's disciples become humble. Those are the qualities that develops when you develop your mind. So you can actually ask yourself, whether am I someone with a developed mind or not? So if you have a developed mind, you become humble, you become patient, you become compassionate. The Supreme Buddha explains, when you practice these things, when you try to purify your mind, when you understand the reality, little by little, what you're entering to is the real path that takes you to real happiness. And that path is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. What is it known as? The Noble Eightfold Path. If you enter that path, the Supreme Buddha explains, it takes you directly to Nibbana, which can give you real happiness. Do you understand? So then our goal in life must be to enter that path. If you enter that path in the right way, you'd never get out of it. Do you understand? If you enter that path, you're someone who understands the truth in life. And that understanding would never change. You would travel the path further and further, develop the path further and further, and one day you'll reach real happiness. Now you may wonder, oh, how can I get into this path? I'm sure you all are interested in entering this path. For if you get into this path, it's guaranteed you'll find real happiness. The Supreme Buddha explains, O bhikkhus, just as dawn is the precursor, the forerunner for the sunrise, the association with Kalyana Mittas is the forerunner and the precursor for entering the Noble Eightfold Path. Did you understand? Just like when dawn comes by, we know for sure that the sun will rise. If you associate with Kalyana Mittas, which means noble friends, the Supreme Buddha explains, if you associate with noble friends who teaches you the Dhamma, who encourages you to practice the Dhamma, then without a doubt, you can enter the path that will take you to real happiness. So then what must we do? We must find noble friends. We must find Kalyana Mittas that teach us the pure Dhamma. Because as we mentioned in the beginning, if we don't have the Dhamma, if we don't know the Dhamma, then there's absolutely no way that we can find real happiness. So in order to find the Dhamma, know the Dhamma, we must associate with Kalyana Mittas, noble friends. Now, does your ordinary friends teach you the path that takes to real happiness? No. They can give you money. They can take care of you when you're sick. They can provide you with material things. But they don't teach you about the Supreme Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. They don't teach you about karma, about the consequences of your actions. They don't teach you about the consequences of having an impure mind. They don't teach you about samsara. However, Kalyana Mittas, when you associate with noble friends, you get to hear about all those things. Right? You get to understand the reality of life. So if you don't lose that association, if you hold on to your Kalyana Mittas, the Supreme Buddha explains, if you hold on to them, you can, without a doubt, enter the path that leads to real happiness. So now you're very blessed that you actually have the opportunity to associate with Kalyana Mittas. Now it's your merit that you have collected in your past lives that has brought you here. Right? It's our merit that allows us to find Kalyana Mittas, noble friends. There are many people in this world who are searching for liberation, searching for a path that leads to real happiness, but there's no one there to tell them, this is the path. But in the contrary, you are blessed to hear about the Blessed One, about the Dhamma, about the Sangha, about the danger of samsara. And so you must make use of this opportunity and practice the Dhamma. If you practice the Dhamma, you can make your life happier. I'll give you an example. During the Supreme Buddha's time, there was a young girl. Now she was not someone who had a good job like you all. She was not a rich person. She was not someone who had a good wealth. She didn't have a good mother and father. She didn't have siblings to take care of her, to love her. She didn't have a mother or father to love her. She was a servant. Now this young girl had long hair. Now she's the one who does all the work at home. However, she doesn't get any thank you, not even a thank you from the housewife, her master. All she gets is beatings from the master, from the housewife. What this housewife does is she holds her from her long hair and she hits her. Now imagine a young girl without parents, without siblings, trapped in a house, having to work and being hit. Imagine how much she would have suffered. Right? Try to understand her mentality. She was so fed up with life, as you can imagine. She was so fed up with life, she wondered, what's the meaning? Why am I living like this? She was so fed up with life that she decided to leave home and commit suicide. So she took a rope and pretending that she's going to fetch water, carrying a pot with her, she went to the nearby forest. And she took the rope and she tied one end onto her neck and she was about to throw the other end. And when she turned, she saw someone. Who did she see? She saw our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha. The Supreme Buddha had come there out of compassion for her. The Supreme Buddha had seen this young girl who's helpless and had come there to help her. So when this young girl turned around, she saw the Supreme Buddha glowing with golden skin. She was startled. She wondered, who is this? She had no idea who the Buddha was. She little by little went towards the Supreme Buddha. And the Supreme Buddha, with his most compassionate heart, addressed her, saying, Rajumala, come here. When she went, the Supreme Buddha taught her the Dhamma. She listened to the Dhamma and she formed a pleasant mind about the Buddha. So she understood who the Buddha was. She understood the Dhamma and she understood who the Sangha was. And she formed an unshakable confidence in the Supreme Buddha. Unshakable confidence being a confidence that nobody can ever change. No matter what other people say, your pleasant mind doesn't change. She became a stream entrant. She entered that path that we were talking about. After listening to the Dhamma and understanding it, she entered that path that leads to real happiness. Now you'd think after listening to the Dhamma and after having found happiness, you'd think she would have left that home and found a job somewhere else, right? But she didn't do that. She went back home. She became an obedient servant. Does that mean that her master was kind to her? No, the master was just the same. When she went back, the master would hit her in the same way. But this Rajumala, this young girl, would be happy. She would smile, she wouldn't yell, she wouldn't talk back. She would be so calm and quiet and she seemed so happy. Now the master wondered what the difference is. And before she was crying and she was angry, she got angry and she was yelling and she was talking back. But now there's a drastic change in her behavior. So the housewife wondered what caused this change. So she asked Rajumala, what happened to you? So she taught the master what she found. She told her that I found happiness. The Supreme Buddha taught me the path that leads to happiness. Now when the master heard this, she also was keen on finding the Supreme Buddha. So she also went, listened to the Dhamma and understood the Dhamma. And she realized the consequences of having an impure mind. And she also became a stream entrant. So you can see that when you have this Dhamma, your life changes. When you listen to the Dhamma and when you incorporate the Dhamma within your life changes. And all those sorrows and pains and lamentations fade away little by little. And your life starts to become joyful, happy, calm, and serene. But it's not going to happen automatically. You actually have to practice the Dhamma. Do you understand? However, practicing the Dhamma is not easy. Is it easy? It's very difficult. Even protecting the precepts is not easy. It's very difficult. And so the Supreme Buddha explains, in order to make it easy, in order to make this practice easy, in order to understand the truth in life, we must do one thing. We must try to correct merit into our life. Merit is the results of good actions. Do you understand? So if our life is filled with merit, we can lead a happier life. The Supreme Buddha explains, it's merit that allows us to be born in rich families. It's our past merit that we have collected that allows us to get a good appearance, beautiful appearance. It's merit that we have collected in our past lives that gives us a good family, good mother, father, siblings, a good spouse. It's a result of merit. And not only that, it's merit that allows us to find the Dhamma, find Kalyana Mittas, and it's merit that allows us to practice this path. So if you collect merit into your life with the intention of finding real happiness, with the intention of entering the path that leads to real happiness, then one day that merit will allow you to enter that path and find real happiness. If you have merit into your life, it will allow you to be born in heavenly worlds. Because if you come back to this human world, don't think that you would be able to listen to the Dhamma again. Don't think you will be able to practice the Dhamma again, because it's highly unlikely. So that's why what we must do is we must collect merit and try to use that merit not only to be born in heavenly worlds, but also use that merit to practice this Dhamma and collect merit with the understanding that may this merit that I collect, may this merit help me to understand the Four Noble Truths and escape from this long journey of birth and death. So today, I bless you. May the amount of merit that you collected today, in this very moment, by simply listening to the Dhamma, by listening to the Supreme Buddha's amazing wisdom, about learning about the Supreme Buddha's wisdom, help all of you, may that merit help all of you to realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Someone comes across the Dhamma, if that person has done wrong things in the past, how can he correct it in the right way was the question. So now most of the time, a lot of people, when they remember the bad things that they have done in the past, the feeling that we get is regret. Is that right? When we realize, oh, I have done this and that, we feel regretful. As Ramevada explains, that's not the way. After you find the Dhamma, you shouldn't lead your life regretfully, but rather, you must think like this. In the past, I did wrong things. So it could be that you engaged in lying, sexual misconduct, or you even killed someone or hurt someone. It could be you lied a lot, you were someone who engaged in fraud. So it could be any of those things. So the Supreme Buddha explains, if you did those things in the past, this is the way you must think. You must think, in the past I did all of these things because I didn't know the right from wrong. I didn't know there were consequences of my actions. I didn't know this. I didn't know we're traveling in something called the samsara. But now I know. So from this moment onwards, I'm going to correct myself. So the Supreme Buddha explains, instead of regretting, instead of being remorseful, rather you must use this opportunity that you have and you must start to cultivate good things. Do you understand? So instead of thinking about, you shouldn't think about those wrong things that you did and always regret. Because when you regret, it's not a wholesome thing. Instead, you must try to do the right thing. For example, if you're someone who lied in the past, from this moment onwards, you must make a determination that I'll never lie again. So you must try to correct yourself this very moment. Because then what becomes powerful is that good karma that you're accumulating. Do you understand?
What is meant by samatha meditation and vipassana meditation? Is it required to develop both samatha and vipassana to attain nibbana?
So I'm sure you're very familiar with the two words samatha and vipassana, right? What's samatha? Samatha means calm abiding meditation, right? So what that means is, calm abiding meditation means it calms your mind. Calms your mind means getting rid of or abandoning 5 things. The Supreme Buddha explains our mind always roams around 5 things, and they're known as 5 hindrances. The first is known as sensual desires. The second is ill will, that means anger, hatred. And the third is being regretful, remorseful. And then the Supreme Buddha explains, our mind is also very restless, right? Kama, Chanda, Vyapada. The third is Thinamidha. Thinamidha means laziness. Now, laziness is not simply yawning or wanting to sleep. Here, Thinamidha really means, in addition to sleepiness, it means you don't have the effort within you to abandon unwholesome things when it comes to your mind. So, example, when you get angry, you don't make an effort to get rid of that anger. So, that's a hindrance to Nibbana. And then the Supreme Buddha explains, Thinamidha, Uddacha Kukkucha. Uddacha Kukkucha means restlessness of the mind. That means our mind is always jumping from one thought to another, right? If we look at the way our mind wanders, it can roam around the whole world. That's what's known as restless. And then the tendency of this mind is to always regret. Now, if you look back at your day, if you did something wrong, you end up regretting. Oh, why did I do it? Why did I say that to him? You end up regretting. And the fifth is doubt, skeptical doubt. That means you doubt the Dhamma. You doubt the path. You wonder, is doing this the right thing? Will it actually lead me to Nibbana? So you have doubts about it. So the Supreme Buddha explains, having these 5 things is a hindrance to Nibbana. So the Supreme Buddha explains, when you practice calm abiding meditation, what it does is, it allows you to abandon those 5 things: sensual desires, ill will, laziness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. So your mind becomes very calm and peaceful and serene. The Supreme Buddha explains, when you practice calm abiding meditation, your mind develops. One day the Supreme Buddha asked, "Oh bhikkhus, what's the purpose of practicing samatha bhavana?" The Supreme Buddha explains, the purpose is to develop the mind. And then the Supreme Buddha explains, why should you develop the mind? The Supreme Buddha answered, "Oh bhikkhus, you must develop the mind in order to abandon lust." And then the Supreme Buddha asked, "Oh bhikkhus, why should you practice vipassana, insight meditation?" Insight meditation means reflecting on the reality of life. So impermanence meditation is considered an insight meditation. And reflecting on dependent origination is considered an insight meditation. So the Supreme Buddha asked, "Oh bhikkhus, why should you practice insight meditation?" The Blessed One explains, "Oh bhikkhus, when you practice insight meditation, your wisdom develops." So what develops when you practice insight meditation? Panya, wisdom develops. So the Blessed One asks, why should you develop your wisdom? The Supreme Buddha explains, you should develop your wisdom in order to abandon ignorance. What's ignorance? Ignorance means not knowing, not understanding the Four Noble Truths. Okay? So then in order to understand the Four Noble Truths and abandon lust, desire, hatred and delusion, we need to practice both. We need to practice both samatha and vipassana. We need both in order to attain nibbana.
The next question is, in our day-to-day life, how can one easily collect merit?
Now you may think when you live your regular daily life, it's difficult to collect merit. Do you feel that way? Do you? Sometimes you may think that, oh, in order for me to collect merit, I have to come to the temple. That's not true. In your everyday life, you can collect a lot of merit. For example, the Supreme Buddha explains, if you protect precepts, every moment you protect a precept, a single precept, a river of merit flows into your life. Did you know that? Every single moment you're protecting a precept. So for example, you decide to not lie. Okay? So you observe that precept and you protect it. So every single moment you're protecting that precept, a river of merit flows into your life. It's not easy to protect the precept, but if you can, then it's an amazing way to collect merit. So if you protect the 5 precepts, 5 rivers of merit flows into your life every single day. Right? And then the Supreme Buddha explains, when you help someone, for example, suppose you take care of the sick. So it could be your mother, your father, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, siblings. When you take care of the sick, with a mind of loving kindness, you collect merit. Of course, you have to do it with a mind of loving kindness. If you yell at them and scream at them and tell them, oh, you know, you're such a nuisance to me, of course, it's not going to collect merit. But if you do it with the mind of loving kindness, if you take care of the sick, you can collect merit at home. And then the Supreme Buddha explains, when you worship stupas, you can collect merit. And the Supreme Buddha explains, when you pay respect to elders, you collect merit. Do you know the result of paying respect to elders? Sometimes you come to the temple and you venerate. You pay respect to monks, right? When you do so, you collect merit. Not just monks. When you pay respect to the elders in the house, when you respect them, you collect merit. The Supreme Buddha explains the reason why some people are born in low castes and less respected families is because they don't respect others. Now, as you know, there are some people who never respect other people. They don't respect the elders. They don't even care about their mother and father. They have no respect. So when you don't respect, the consequence is in your next life, you're born in lower families who doesn't get any respect. However, if you pay respect, not just to monks and nuns, but to those who deserve respect, we pay respect to those who deserve respect, in your next life, you're born in respected families, in high caste families, which is respected in society. So that's a merit you collect, right? And then the Supreme Buddha explains, by not getting angry, you can also collect merit. As you know, in this society that we live in, we see some people are so pretty, so pleasant to look at. Do you know the reason behind it? The reason behind it, the Supreme Buddha explains, is those who don't get angry easily, those who are very patient and can tolerate, those who don't become angry easily, they are the ones, when they are born in their next lives, they are born as people with beauty. And when you get angry, go to the mirror and look at yourself. It's not very attractive, is it? You become red and black and very unpleasant to look at. So when you're angry all the time, you have to take the consequence even to the next life. However, if when people blame you, when they insult you, you're patient, you're calm, you're serene, you don't talk back, you don't blame them, you maintain a mind of loving kindness. Your face doesn't change. When you do that, you collect merit. So then can't we collect merit every day? If we try, we can. And then the Supreme Buddha explains giving is also another way of collecting merit. The reason why some people are so wealthy and why some people are not so wealthy, the difference is giving. Those who give to others, those who are generous in their past lives, they are the ones in their next lives when they're born in the human world, they're born in wealthy families. They have money. They can spend it any way they want. But those who were not generous, they are born in poor families. And the Supreme Buddha explains, not hurting animals is also another way of collecting merit. When you don't kill animals, when you don't hurt animals, you collect merit. That merit that you collect helps you in the next life, helps you to get a long lifespan and be healthy. So if you all like to be healthy, now as you know, we see some people from the moment they are born, they have some sort of sickness, some sort of illness. But there are some people who have never even been to the doctor. The difference is, those who never hurt living beings, who never killed living beings, they have longer lifespans and they're healthy. So in that way, you can collect merit at home. And the Supreme Buddha explains another way of collecting merit is practicing meditation. So when you practice meditation, you collect merit. If you can at least take 5 minutes and practice metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation, the Supreme Buddha explains the merit collected from loving kindness meditation is the greatest merit you can collect out of all merit in this world. Just like the moon outshines the light of all other stars, the merit collected through loving kindness meditation outshines all other merit. So through that you can collect merit. When you help others, when you take care of others, when you speak to others kindly, you collect merit. When you go to work and you do your job rightly, correctly, without engaging in fraud, if you're someone who's dealing with customers, if you deal with them in a nice manner, you collect merit because you're doing the job in the right way. Okay? So every single day, if you can maintain a pure mind and practice these things, you can collect merit. And when you collect merit, your life becomes happy. Okay? So then every day we can collect merit. And when you spend your day, if you can give something to someone else, it could be your friend, it could be someone begging on the street. When you give, you get. Okay, so in that way, we have the opportunity to collect merit every single moment. We just have to know and take advantage of those opportunities.
Venerable Nun, the next question is, how does a person get initiated into meditation?
The question was, how can a person get initiated into meditation? Now, before you meditate, you must have a good understanding of the Dhamma. You must have a good knowledge of the Dhamma. If you don't have a good knowledge of the Dhamma, then you can't develop meditation. If you don't realize the purpose of meditation, you can't develop meditation in the right way. So before you start meditating, you must have at least a basic understanding of what the Dhamma is. That is, you must know that we're traveling in a long journey of samsara, and you must know that there are results of our actions. The good we do, the bad we do comes after us, comes behind us. And you must know about purifying the mind. So you must have a good knowledge of what the Dhamma is. So you can learn the Dhamma either by reading or by listening to the Dhamma. So after you listen to the Dhamma and get a good knowledge of the Dhamma, then you must start meditation. Or else you can meditate, you can even attain a samadhi, but it won't be a samma samadhi. Meaning, it won't be a samadhi, it won't help you to find real happiness. It'll be like that story that I said, how that princess practiced that meditation and went to the Brahma world, but there was no security for her. She fell back into the animal world. So there's no purpose in that. When you meditate, you must meditate with the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. When you do so, then you can develop your meditation in the right way, and that meditation will help you and lead you to Nibbana. So start with learning the Dhamma first.
The next question is, sometimes I get angry for little things. How can I cope with my anger?
So the question was about, again, anger. I'm sure you know the answer to it. When you get angry, I think I mentioned it before as well, the solution, the Supreme Buddha explains, is loving kindness, metta. So, metta bhavana is not something that you have to always sit down and do. Do you understand? So don't think that, oh, I have to practice loving kindness meditation, I have to go to the temple, sit down, close my eyes. No. Metta is something that you must have within your heart. So that means when you're walking, when you're standing, when you're sitting, when you're lying down, that heart of compassion and loving kindness should be maintained. Or else, you can practice loving kindness meditation and then the next moment someone does something bad or someone does something that you don't want, you'll get angry. So loving kindness meditation means trying to maintain a pure mind, free of anger all the time. To get there, practicing the meditation helps. So thinking, may I be free of anger, may I be free from ill will, may I be free from physical and mental suffering, may I live happily. So doing that meditation over and over again helps you to get rid of anger. Okay? So the main thing is you must first recognize that you have gotten angry. Because sometimes, I'm sure you have experienced, sometimes you get angry, you yell and you do so much harm, and then you realize, oh, oops, right? That's not the way. The moment you get angry, you must recognize it. So for that, you must be very mindful. And you must realize the consequences of anger. The Supreme Buddha explains, if you die while you're angry, you'll be born in a bad world. Right? So you must realize that if I die this moment, think like that. When you're angry, be mindful and think, if I die this very moment, then I'll be born in a bad world. So then I must quickly get rid of this anger. And try to spread loving kindness. Try to be patient. Patience is very important. Patience goes in sync with loving kindness. If you're not a patient person, you can't practice loving kindness. You must be very patient. You must be very tolerant. You must tolerate the words of others. You must be patient when other people are doing things that you don't want to see, that you don't like. So along with patience, you must practice loving kindness, and that will help you to, little by little, gradually get rid of anger. The Supreme Buddha explained, because even if someone catches you and holds you from the two sides and takes a knife and cut you in half, don't get angry. So you can imagine then how dangerous being angry must be. We don't realize it, right? But the Supreme Buddha, who knows and sees everything, saw it. That's why the Supreme Buddha said, even when you're being cut into two halves, don't get angry. Because if you get angry, then you'll have to face the consequences of it. Okay?
In society, we see that there are a lot of extramarital relationships that married couples get into. If one is facing such a situation, how can they deal with it according to the Dhamma?
Yes, I think in the present society, that's a main problem that we face. The main reason for that is people don't realize the effect of their actions. They don't realize the consequences of it. When in a family there is no trust, and when they are not people who are virtuous, this can happen. The Supreme Buddha explains engaging in sexual misconduct is considered to have very dangerous consequences. The Supreme Buddha explains, if you engage in sexual misconduct, that means you get involved with someone who you're not married to, so you're not your wife or husband. As a consequence of it, you can be born in the next life. You'll be born in the hell world. And if somehow, after suffering in that hell world for a long time, if you come back to the human world, one consequence you'll have to face is you'll get a lot of enemies. Why? Because when you engage in sexual misconduct, you hurt a lot of other people, right? You hurt so many other people. It could be your wife, it could be your husband that you hurt, or it could be the family that you hurt. So, as a result of that, as a result of hurting them, in the next life you get a lot of enemies. Not only that, the Supreme Buddha explains, when you engage in sexual misconduct, in your next lives, it's difficult for you to find someone who really loves you. So you lack that love. And it's difficult for you to have a successful marriage. Those are the consequences. So if you want to have a successful marriage, if you want to have someone who loves you very much, you shouldn't be someone who engages in sexual misconduct. You must understand the consequences of it and refrain from it. And if someone doesn't know the consequences of it, you must try to teach them.
When I see other people being very successful, sometimes I feel jealous. I know that jealousy is not a good thing. How can I cope with my jealousy?
Yes. So jealousy is a defilement that's within, actually we can say, all of our minds, right? What's jealousy? Is there anyone who hasn't felt jealous? Most of us have felt jealous at one point or another, right? Jealousy is that feeling that dislikeness that we get when we see other people doing better than us. So if another person has a better house than us, a better vehicle than us, or has a better job than us, we get this jealous feeling. Oh no, I wish I had that. Right? We instead of rejoicing in other people's success, we feel jealous. That's considered unwholesome. So the Supreme Buddha explains, in order to get rid of jealousy, you must practice mudita. Mudita means rejoicing in seeing other people successful. Now, if we take the ordinary society, do a lot of people become happy and rejoice when other people become successful, or do they become jealous? They become jealous, right? So the Supreme Buddha explains, if you want to get rid of jealousy, practice. Be happy when you see other people doing well. When you see other people becoming successful, try to be happy. You have to do it forcefully sometimes. Remind yourself about the Dhamma, about the consequences, and try to be happy. You can think, when you get jealous, think, this person got this good job because of his past merit. Right? He or she has a good appearance because of his past merit. He has a good house because of his past merit. If I am jealous, I'll have to face the consequences. So think it like that and train your mind to be happy when you see other people doing well. That's the way to get rid of jealousy.
The last question is, what are the benefits of observing Sila?
I think I mentioned this in a previous question. One of the main benefits of observing precepts is every single moment that you protect the precept, you collect merit. And The other advantage is when you protect precepts, you're restraining your body and speech. Do you understand? So when you observe precepts, the next time you're about to lie, you remember, oh no, I promised I'd protect this precept. So it's kind of like a boundary for you. Observing precepts is like a boundary for you to protect your speech and body. Okay? So when you protect precepts, the Supreme Buddha explains your body and speech become restrained, controlled, and it helps you to not collect, not accumulate bad karma. And on top of that, the Supreme Buddha explains people who are virtuous, people who protect precepts, increase in their wealth. They get a good wealth as a result. The wealth develops further. And the Supreme Buddha explains a good fame about you goes in society. So this person is someone who never lies. This person has a good character. He gets a good fame about him around. And then Supreme Buddha explains a person who protects precepts can go into any group of people without being scared. Why? Because he knows he has never done anything. Now, for example, suppose you're someone who always gossips and spread rumors, right? So you're someone who lies all the time. So when you go into a group of people, you never know when they'll catch your lies, right? However, if you're someone who protects precepts, you're not someone who ever lies, who ever spreads rumors. You're someone who has pure speech. You don't have to be scared, right? You can go into any audience fearlessly. So the Supreme Buddha explains that's another result of protecting precepts. And the Supreme Buddha explains the final one is if you protect precepts, it allows you to be born in good worlds, in heavenly worlds, because of the merit you're collecting. Okay, so we have come to the end of the Dhamma program. So let us dedicate all the merit that we have collected today by teaching the Dhamma as well as listening to the Dhamma and forming a pleasant mind about the Triple Gem and discussing the Dhamma. May all the merits that we collected be dedicated to all Devas, all Brahmas, and all Nagas, and may this merit help them to develop the path and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And especially may this merit be dedicated to my most venerable teacher, who taught us this Dhamma in this basic, simple manner, in a way that's easy to understand. May this merit be dedicated to the Mahasangha, as well as all Anagarika nuns, as well as all nuns in the world. And may this merit help them to develop their spiritual path and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the merit we collected today be dedicated to the most venerable monks of Sri Lanka Ramaya Buddhist Temple in Singapore for their support and guidance in preparation for today's sermon. And may this merit be dedicated to Venerable Ananda Sagarathero for his immense support in organizing this event. And also, may the merit we collected today be dedicated to the President of the Temple Management Committee, Mr. Bennett Manukularatna. And may all the merit we collected today be dedicated to all those who help make this Dhamma program successful. And may all this merit be dedicated to all of us who listened to the Dhamma today. And may this merit help us to form a pleasant mind about the Triple Gem, learn the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma and escape from this long journey of samsara in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may this merit be dedicated to all our departed relatives. May their afterlives be well and happy, and may they rejoice in this merit. And may this merit help them to realize the Four Noble Truths and escape from this samsara in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you. Namo Buddhaya.